And welcome back. In my last video, I mentioned that I was going to compare the 14-30 f4 from Nikon to its sibling 20mm f1.8 that you see in my hands over here. And this is what this video is going to be about, at least for the most part. Now, this is also going to be a review of the 20mm f1.8, but it's not going to be super technical. There's plenty of review around. This lens is not new by any stretch of imagination, so it would make no sense for me to go super deep in the details of the image quality. We're going to talk about that, but we're mostly going to talk about what this lens can get you over the 14-30 and what the 14-30 can get you over this 20mm f1.8. So that being said, speaking of the build of this lens, it's built like any S lens that you can think. It's pretty big if you consider that this is a 20mm f1.8, and 20mm f1.8 is the one that is recording me right now on the Sony, and the Sony lens is way smaller than this Nikon lens. The weight difference is not dramatic, but the size difference is definitely there. This is quite of a big lens, and once you remove this hood, you also see this kind of a mushroom shape with this part of the lens that is way bigger than the rest, and the lens is pretty long too. Like for a 20mm f1.8, this is a long lens. But the lens is built very well. It's got your autofocus, monofocus switch. You have the focus ring, you don't have the function ring, but you can set the camera to make like the focus ring is going to act as your function ring. As I mentioned in the other video, in the 14-30 video, I don't use that much, so I'm not gonna miss that. I'm not gonna miss that at all. And the build is really good. I mean, it's made of very good plastic. It doesn't feel cheap at all. It actually feels like it's very well built. It's obviously a weather sealed lens, and like it's a normal S-line lens. There's not much to say about that. Starting with the comparison with the 14-30, in there, once the 14-30 is not extended, the length of the 14-30 is way shorter than this. Yes, it's a wider lens because the front filter on that lens is 82 millimeters, with this one is 77. But the length of the lens may make a difference depending on what type of backpack you're rocking and what you wanna do with it. So it's definitely not a small lens. I think I've said that pretty clear in this video. When it comes to the image quality of this lens is really good. It's actually spectacular because even wide open, the corners are pretty good. Of course, as you stop down, they're gonna get a little bit better, but you don't have those weak corners that you may expect from a very fast aperture wide angle lens. So very well designed optically. The sharpness throughout the range is pretty high. As you get to f11, f16, of course, diffraction is going to kick in and it's going to start diminishing the sharpness of the lens. The sun stars that you get out of this lens are pretty good, although not spectacular. Or, I mean, it depends on what you're shooting, because I kind of had a couple of occasions where the Sunstar was really good, and you're seeing it right now. But most of the time, it's not perfect. Like, it's better than the 14-30. In a similar scenario, the 14-30 is less defined. With this one, you get a better Sunstars, but none of them are going to be your perfect Sunstars type of lens. When it comes to the image quality compared to the 14-40, because I believe this is what you guys are looking for the most, at comparable apertures, you don't get a big deal of a difference. Yes, of course, when you're at f4, this lens is already stopped down by more than 2 stops, while the 14-30 is totally wide open. And so the corners on this lens are going to be better than those of the 14-30, but the difference is not dramatic. The 14-30 is a pretty astonishing quality lens, and the corners on that lens, even wide open, are really good. Of course, overall, you're gonna get more crispness of an image with a lens like this, especially if you compare it at similar aperture, where this lens is very stopped down, while that one may be wide open or close to that. But that difference is gonna be barely noticeable, and it's definitely not gonna be noticed by any of the other guys that they're going to be looking at your pictures. So yes, you get a little bit better of an image quality with the 20mm f1.8, but the difference is very, very small. And so what you're going to do comparing the two lenses is understanding which one is better for you, not from an image quality standpoint, because they're both great, but from a usage standpoint. Let's just start with saying that this one going at f1.8 can definitely get you more flexibility when it comes to blurring the background or shooting in low light environments. Of course, that goes without saying. And the background blur that you get out of this lens is pretty good. It's actually pretty good for a wide angle lens. It's pretty good. On the other hand, the 14 to 30 gets you that flexibility on the focal range that you don't have with a prime lens. Now, of course, 14 to 30 is a pretty impressive range, but you also need to consider that most of the time, 20 millimeters is enough to fit everything that you want in a picture. However, for those cases where 20 millimeters is not enough, that 14 to 30 range comes in very, very clutch. And so the choice between this or the 14 to 30 is only based on choosing what type of flexibility you need the most. You need the range flexibility, you go for the 14 to 30. You need aperture flexibility, background blur flexibility, you need low light performance, then you may have to choose the 20mm f1.8. Either way, you're gonna get astonishingly good pictures. So it's only a matter of your use case. If you're using your lens 90% of the time stop down to f8 or stuff like that, or even between f4 and f5.6, for my type of use, that is what I do. I tend not to do any astrophotography. I tend not to do any low light photography unless I'm going to shoot the northern lights or something like that. And then in that case, for me, the 14 to 30 makes a lot more sense because it gives me that flexibility that 14 millimeters can be pretty, as I mentioned in that video, pretty addictive. And I wouldn't get any advantage from the flexibility that this 20 millimeters f1.8 gives over the 14 to 30. If anything, if I'm going to shoot I live in Sicily, so there's no northern lights, so I don't need to have that fast of a lens all the time. If I'm going to Iceland, or if I'm going to Lapland, if I'm going to a place where you can go shoot the northern lights, or if I'm doing astrophotography, then in that case I would probably buy another lens. I would buy the 14 to 30 for my normal landscape stuff, and then I would probably buy maybe the Viltrox 16mm f1.8. I'm gonna try to find one that I can test, because it costs basically less than half the price of this, and for using it once every so often, in my opinion, it makes more sense to go that route rather than spending a lot of money in a lens that sits in your house most of the time. On the other hand, if I'm doing events, if I'm doing for me, for example, if I'm doing events, I love to shooting very wide, and I love to shooting with the flash and background blur. A lens like this, in that case, would be spectacularly good, because the flash will never cover the 20 millimeters range. It would cover 28 if you're like the normal flashes, that's what they're gonna cover. So what you're gonna get is the center of your frame is very well lit. The corners are not lit, like there's a cone of light that doesn't cover the entire image. And then shooting at f1.8, you can definitely blur the background and give importance to the scene that you're shooting. So that's what I would recommend this lens for. If you're doing that type of stuff, this more than a 14 to 24 f2.8, because going from f1.8 to f2.8 makes a lot of a difference. And in that case, that would be great. This would be great for astrophotography, as I mentioned. This would be great for low light, any type of low light. Maybe you're doing concert photography and you want to take pictures. You have the chance to take pictures from right in the basically in the stage, right below the stage. A lens like this would definitely be great for that type of pictures. And so you basically choosing between two different types of flexibilities. For me, the flexibility that I need is the range flexibility, because I'm gonna be shooting most of the time at f8 or f11 or even f16 if I want some kind of sun stars. And so any advantage that I get out of this lens is basically going to be lost. And on top of that, I have a bigger lens and think even more heavy lens than the 14 to 30 that is going to be sitting in my bag without too much use. If you are on the other side of the fence, meaning you're a low light photographer, night photographer, and stuff like that, this lens is gonna cover your back. It's gonna get you incredibly good image quality. It's gonna get you everything that you can possibly ask from a high performance, high quality, wide angle, fast wide angle lens. I'm not going to compare it against the Sony 20mm f1.8. It doesn't make too much sense. If you're investing in a system, you have that. If you're investing in the other system, you have the other option. So it doesn't make too much sense. The only thing that I mentioned already in the video is that this is much bigger than the Sony. And that may make a difference if you're on the fence and investing on one system versus the other. And the 20mm f1.8 is your main lens that you're going to be using. If size matters, probably the Sony system is a little bit better. Otherwise, this lens is super, super, super good. It's like I'm sad that I'm gonna be selling this lens because I want to invest on the 14 to 30 because this lens is super good. It's actually super good. I just cannot afford to have that many lenses, and I cannot justify having this over the 14 to 30. I hope you like this video. Let me know in the comments below if you want to know more, if you have any opinion on that, if you already have one of these lenses and which one you like the most. And let's share our comments down below. Thank you, ciao, and I'll see you in the next one.